folks, welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris once again. Hello, folks, and welcome back to Chris Wide Africa. This is Chris here in Central Pennsylvania. And what I'm very excited to have an opportunity today to speak to the president of the Inkatha Freedom Party. Now, for those of you who aren't keeping up with current affairs, that's no longer Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. He still serves in Parliament and is still quite busy. But the gentleman who is president of the party is none other than Mr. Velenkosini Hlabisa. And I'd like to welcome you, sir, onto the program. It's a pleasure to have an opportunity to talk to you today about your party and about the elections coming up. We just got him on mute there. Get him to unmute his microphone. We'll be set. That's still on mute. There we go. Hello.
Yes. Hello, Chris.
How are you today, sir?
I'm very good, Chris. Good morning, as well as the followers of this program.
Well, thank you very much. And for those, not too many of my followers in America currently watching, they'll catch the show afterwards. It's 5 a.m. on this side, but so 11 o'clock on your side. But let's get right into it, sir. I've been telling people that probably since June last year, when the lockdown restrictions first eased a little bit, that this could be potentially the most consequential election in South Africa's modern history, at least since 1994, and that this is a critical event and that people should get registered. 26 million people in the end are registered to vote, and there are a number of parties vying for candidates. Your party was a major party at the national level back in the 1990s, and it's kind of waned a little bit at the national level, and I think that probably has something to do with Jacob Zuma. We'll get into that in a little bit if you'd like. But coming into this election for municipal elections, selecting people to be members of city councils, how are you feeling about your party? Your manifesto launch was last week. Is your party feeling good? Do you think you have a good slate of candidates that you're challenging for city councils?
As we approach the 2021 local government elections, the IFP is very satisfied. We did a groundwork in terms of preparing for our launch, and it was exceptional. And over the weekend, I was in Gauteng. I went there on Thursday to do a groundwork mobilization, personally walking on foot, meeting communities, asking them to come over or join us on media platform so that they can hear what do we offer as a solution to the challenges experienced in South Africa. So I'm very happy. The spirit, when we made the launch, although it was a limited number, but the many responses we get from the social media is exceptional. And almost all people, even across political organizations, they do confess that put politics aside, the IFP did excellent work in the manifesto launch. It demonstrates preparedness, and the 10-point plan we presented spoke to the reality of South Africa. And physically in Gauteng, I met people at Soweto Stadium, the jubilation, the enthusiasm, especially the stadium was filled up by young people and women who are the majority in South Africa. We are very happy and very ready for the coming elections. By the way, Chris, we knew in 2016 that the next local government election will be in 2021 around August. And we have been preparing for this election. The evidence is there, Chris. If you would want me to carry on, I can demonstrate that we have been preparing for, just for your information, as well as your followers. In 2012, when we had the challenge of a split, when the NFP broke away, I led the team into a strategic plan where we went to a drawing board to find a way to come back as a force in the politics of South Africa. The strategy that we adopted in 2012, it delivered the results in the rerun of one of the municipalities in 2014. And definitely in 2016, we came back with 13 municipalities versus 2 municipalities we won in 2011. Again, in 2019, during provincial and national elections, we came out very well in KwaZulu-Natal. We removed the DA as an official opposition, and the IFP is now the official opposition, and we are on our way to remove the ANC as a governing party in 2024. In the whole by-elections that have been taking place, the IFP has been doing very well. In the super by-election that was held on November 20, 2020, after the hard lockdown, it is the IFP that demonstrated exceptional performance. We even took an award from the ruling party, the ANC at Inkatha, where Jacob Zuma resides. Again in May this year, at Opongolo, we took an award from the ANC. That is a demonstration that we have been preparing for the coming local government elections, and we are satisfied we are going to do very well.
Well, you've touched on quite a number of things that are very important we should address there. Number one, the Inkatha Freedom Party, for those outside South Africa, is known primarily, or at least has a reputation of being a Zulu-based party and focused on KwaZulu-Natal. But based on your statements there, it seems as though the party certainly has larger national ambitions. Now, realizing this is a local municipal elections around the country, as you mentioned, you were in Gauteng campaigning. Does the IFP have candidates throughout the country? Have you been able to cover all the metros, or is it limited to certain parts of the country? Because some of the smaller parties aren't able to canvass the whole country with candidates. But are you able to get candidates out in all the city councils around the country?
Chris, for the benefit of people who are not South African, let me just give this small background. Mm-hmm. The IFP is a liberation movement that was not formed after the freedom of 1994, but the IFP as a liberation movement was formed in 1975, 46 years ago. It is the IFP during deep apartheid time under Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi that raised a voice and said, release Nelson Mandela and all political prisoners, unban the ANC and all political parties in exile. It is the IFP president that moved across Africa to Zambia, seeking the mandate for the liberation of Black people in South Africa. So now it is not a Zulu-based party. As I can confess to you, we are contesting 9 provinces, which is the whole country of South Africa. As I was in Gauteng on Sunday, is the second biggest, or is the first biggest province in South Africa, followed by KwaZulu-Natal, where we launched our national manifesto. And on Thursday, I am at Mpumalanga province to launch our manifesto. My national chairperson on Thursday and Friday last week, he was at Limpopo province and Northwest province to launch the IFP manifesto. Over the weekend, the coming weekend, I'm going to Free State and Eastern Cape. So now we are a national representative party, because even at a national level, we are represented by other members coming from other provinces. So the IFP is not a Zulu-based party. Of course, its stronghold is in KwaZulu-Natal, followed by Gauteng, followed by Mpumalanga, and we have therefore the supporters in all other 9 provinces of South Africa.
No, I think it's a very good point that you helped make there for me, is that it's not simply a Zulu-based ethnic party, which is what many people presume. So it's good to get them properly informed on that. And you do mention that the party does have a strength in KwaZulu-Natal, historical one. Of course, as you also mentioned, this is a party that came in existence long before the end of the apartheid state, and that it fought for freedom. But so you'd have to understand that people could be excused for not realizing that the ANC has tried to pretend it's the only liberation party of South Africa ever since it took power in 1994. If you go to the Apartheid Museum in Gold Reef City there in Soweto, right next to it, almost everything praises the ANC, the Inkatha Freedom Party, Steve Biko and the Black Consciousness Movement, Helen Suzman, the Black Sash Movement. Virtually none of that's mentioned. And when you see that mention, they put ANC right next to it. It's as if they've tried to pretend that they were the sole people responsible for liberating South Africa, when in fact the IFP was working inside South Africa legally and legitimately to try to bring liberation and freedom to everybody long before that. So thank you for that. I think many people don't realize that. So, last year I had several followers, viewers on my program that actually were members of the IFP, and one of them was a gentleman named Morton Christie. He's a white South African, and I was great to have him on because I said, it's nice to have you on to dispel this myth that the IFP is just a bunch of Zulus, because it's not. So I think you've articulately explained how that is. But let me shift a little bit here and ask you this question, sir. Events in July and August in the two provinces where your party has its strongest connection with voters, in Gauteng and in KwaZulu-Natal or KZN. We saw what happened in July, and we can talk about that quite a bit if you like. But do the events, because the reason I'm raising this is obvious. Of course, it's the elephant in the room we have to talk about. No pun intended there. But most parties are talking about service delivery, and that makes sense at the municipal level. But also in this situation, in KZN, in Gauteng, we saw these riots, this looting taking place, and the state unresponsive or intentionally not doing something. It was pretty obvious. Is this an opportunity? Are people angry about those events in those two provinces? Is that having an impact? Are you hearing from voters that they're angry with the ANC? Perhaps they might be more interested in voting for your party? Any thoughts on that?
What happened in July exposed the reality on the ground in terms of poverty, inequality, and unemployment, because we saw our people doing what we never expected or even thought they would do in South Africa. But the truth of the matter, the unemployment rate, poverty, and inequality is a time-ticking bomb in South Africa. More so because South Africa does have enough resources. If you listen to the Zondo Commission, billions of money were spent wrongly in the hands of the leaders of the ruling party, the ANC. I'm not decampaigning them. I'm talking about what transpires in the Zondo Commission. No other political party is implicated except one political party, and it's billions of money. When South Africa experienced COVID-19, South African government managed to mobilize 500 billion rand. And unfortunately, the biggest chunk of that money also got misused in the hands of the very same ruling party. But the point I'm trying to drive home is that South Africa is rich. South Africa has resources. South Africa is able to mobilize money to create job opportunities, to close the gap between the rich and the poor, to ensure that people have decent housing, are connected to electricity, water, roads, and a good health system. But unfortunately, the ruling party has failed people of South Africa over 27 years. Now, what we saw in July, all what we are saying to the people of South Africa, that the 1st of November local government election is your time to liberate yourself. You have voted by heart of loving the ruling party as a liberation organization, but it has let you down. Even the chaos that occurred in July, it should not have reached the proportion it eventually reached if the ruling party is down on the ground. You know, a country with a smart intelligence would have detected that catastrophe long before it happened. And people even told them that we will block roads, we will attack key areas, and they just went fast asleep. And it happened as people have told that we will do A, B, C, D. And Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, as a senior statesman, he called the president and the minister of the security that deploy the army early. This is beyond the police to handle. They said, well, there is nothing that demands the deployment of the army up until it went out of hand, and they eventually decided to deploy the very same army which they denied at the beginning. And it took them more than 14 days to get the army on the ground, and the economy in these two provinces was destroyed, adding more hardship to our people already suffering under poor service by our government. So now it is up to our people. Our message to them is that it is up to you. This time around, don't vote by heart as to what do you love. Use your eyes and your brain and vote for what can make change in your life and for your children. We are hopeful that people of South Africa will vote the IFP as an alternative, because we have a track record, from even beyond 1994, because the IFP was in government, in the erstwhile KwaZulu government, not even a single minister was ever charged on a case of corruption. From 1994, the IFP was in governance in KwaZulu-Natal for 10 years. Not even a single premier was ever charged on a case of corruption. Not even a single minister, not even a single member of parliament, even from 1994 to date, not even a single mayor, not even a single councillor or current members of provincial and national assembly have ever been up and down in court on a case of corruption, robbing the people of South Africa the benefits of their resources. But guess, what is it on the ruling party? Almost every day.
Oh, it is.
Almost every day.
It is every day.
The latest 2 days ago, the premier of Eastern Cape has been charged. It is up to the people of South Africa. I'm not decampaigning the ruling party, but it's the reality, which we must make people aware, even those who do not follow news on daily basis.
No, it's sorry. I join you in the right there saying that, but I can't help it. It is every day, sir. Every single day. It's disheartening to say the very least. And now we have members of the ANC who are being charged with murder, who are serving in positions. It's unbelievable. It's every single day there's a new scandal, or we hear about it. The digital vibe scandal is Velenkosini, and we hear from the president that, well, we have to remember that he's resigned, as if resigning is good enough. Stealing from South African people.
But Chris, he resigned as a minister, but remained as a member of the National Assembly.
That's correct. He's still in Parliament. Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't
make sense.
It doesn't. Thank you. You're the only other person other than myself that's pointed that out. He may have resigned as a minister, a cabinet minister, but he remains in Parliament, remains collecting his salary, and not charged with a crime, even though the Special Investigative Unit found that he clearly committed crimes. And we are supposed to just forgive him because he's done much good for the country. Well, I'm real sorry to hear that, but whatever good he did for the country has been damaged by the fact that he's stolen in the midst of a black swan event. As Cyril Ramaphosa himself claims, the greatest healthcare crisis in a century since the Spanish influenza. He's stolen from the very people that he's supposed to be helping. It's a disgrace, and this happens all the time. In Mpumalanga, MEC, this Mandla Isimbipi is charged with murder now.
That is the latest than what I said for the Premier of Eastern Cape. Almost daily, there will be an incident that is a disgrace emanating from the leaders of the ruling party, and people of South Africa should open their eyes and use their brains.
But even if they don't want to pay attention to the corruption, which ought to be enough to convince people not to vote for the African National Congress and look for alternatives, or come back to the IFP or come to it for the first time, as well as others, just look at service delivery. My goodness, children in the Eastern Cape dying in pit latrines in primary schools, and the ANC's answer is it's Jan van Riebeck's fault. I really don't think that Jan van Riebeck arriving in the Cape in 1652 has much to do with 27 years of service failure. The ANC is made things actually far worse in much of the education system. Now, this service delivery is something that can be affected by political parties at the local level, and it's an opportunity. Do you in your plan, because I've only had an opportunity to see part of the original manifesto launch, the first one you had, in your points that you have out there, is service delivery a key component of what you're focusing on for these local elections in 2021?
You see, Chris, the major challenge, that is why, or let me start from this angle so that I can drive this point very easily. The existence of the three spheres of government in South Africa, it was because of the IFP that made that proposal. The ANC believed in a unitary state, and the IFP came with a proposal for a federal state with three spheres of government. After a lengthy discussion, the idea of the IFP was eventually accepted. Now, we are saying to them, the IFP is the master of this idea. Devolve more powers from the national government and provincial government to the local government, because the local government is the closest sphere of government to the people. And whenever people have a problem, the closest government they can walk on foot or drive not so many kilometers is the local government. And if the local government is given more powers, even in education, health, and security, it will make a tremendous change in the lives of our people, because the limited functions given to the local sphere, the IFP where we govern, we have delivered. Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi has served South Africa for more than 6 decades. And over these 6 decades, which is more than 60 years, he has never been implicated on a corruption case. And he has made it as a brand for the IFP, that the IFP, whenever you are given money, you must know it's a public money, not yours, as a representative. We have done exceptionally well in the provision of electricity. In the municipalities that we govern, we are on record. People can go there. That is why we say it boldly within South Africa, that if you want to prove our record, just go to the municipalities we govern. You will see electricity, you will see decent housing. It is true, the power for housing provision is at a provincial level, but a local municipality plays a facilitation role in terms of identifying the beneficiaries, in terms of advertising the tender, appointing the service provider, monitoring work, paying the service provider. In other municipalities not governed by the IFP, the housing projects don't get finished. But what gets finished is money because of corruption. But come to the IFP municipalities. When we begin a project, we finish the project, we hand over the project. Even the ruling party at a provincial level, it is very keen to give money to IFP-led municipalities. Why? Because of our record. They know you won't have a headache once you have allocated money in an IFP-led municipality, because it is our practice that whenever you begin a project, finish the project at a quality level. That is why we have provided thousands of households to our people. I can take you to Johannesburg. Johannesburg, the city of Johannesburg is a metro. It's controlled by the ANC. But there are 2 MMCs, members of the mayoral committee, who are IFP members. One is a 33-year-old, a youth, who is responsible for the housing department. He has excelled amongst the ANC MMCs in Johannesburg in the provision of houses, in the provision of title deeds. Over a period of 2.5 years, he released 7,200 title deeds to people, a backlog dating back to 1996, only unblocked over the past 2.5 years by an IFP councillor, giving the ownership of property and land to our people, something they have waited for decades since the advent of our freedom in 1994. The second councillor, because I want to say to you, we are not doing it only in KwaZulu-Natal, in Gauteng. What therefore this means, give the IFP an opportunity, we deliver. Even when the government is under the control of the ANC, give us a department, we deliver, because it is our slogan that whenever you are trusted with an opportunity to represent people, make them not regret, but instead to celebrate. When I went to Soweto on Saturday, I wanted to accompany our young men in delivering the title deeds to few families. One senior member who is 87 years old, Mrs. Shabalala, she broke down into tears and said, I waited for this title deed for many years. It only comes now when I'm about to die. And I said, no, but you should not cry. Rather say, I thank the IFP because before God calls me, the title deed is in my hand. It will remain with my children, knowing that they are the owners of this property as well as the land in which it was. You can only find that from the IFP.
Well, it's interesting you talk about that. I have so many other questions and directions to go, but let's just stay with that for a moment. One of the things I've castigated the ruling party about for many years is that they essentially have retained dead capital. And what I mean by that is that they talk about land reform and now expropriation without compensation, but the reality is that millions of South Africans are sitting on equity that the government holds on to because, in my view, they seem to want them to remain serfs or under the influence or dependent on the state. Basically, what you're just talking about there, handing title deed to a house, if it's an RDP house or some other house is built, a house and the land under it, when that's delivered to people in South Africa by the government, in my view, the title deed should be given to them as well, so they have something that's tangible property. I mean, if you want to start a business, a spaza or a tuck shop or something like that, and you need some kind of collateral to go to a bank. I mean, that's what you need. So if you own a home, you can put up the home against it. Now, you don't want to fail because you don't want your home taken by the bank, but you at least have some collateral. If the government would transfer title deed for all the homes that it has built or that have come up over the years to South Africans living in those places now, they would free up billions and billions and billions of dollars of capital for South Africans, and the overwhelming majority of beneficiaries would be Black South Africans. Isn't that correct?
I quite agree with you, Chris. The view of the IFP is that there is a lot of land under the hands of the government as we speak. And there is a lot of land that is owned by people who are not using it. Some of them are staying abroad, but they hold the ownership of land in South Africa, and they're not doing it at all. We say the government should repossess that land because it is not used for the benefit of the South Africans by the owner, but it's just lying unutilized. And once the government has repossessed that land, the government must do land redistribution to our people, provide housing closer to cities. Because if you provide housing to people 30 kilometers away from the cities, you create a burden for them, that if they want to go to the city, they must pay. Yet other people are staying closer to the city and closer to the workplace. They pay very little from home to the working place. We believe in that. But there will be a distinction that we should make. South Africa is composed of people living in rural areas and those in urban areas. In urban areas, we say, give land to the people, give the title deed to the owner of the house so that it is a security which he can use, as you have just indicated. But it will be slightly different if you go to rural areas. Many of the families are polygamous families, where you find a family of more than 5 wives in one household. Now, if you give a title deed to one person can go and use a title deed to borrow money in the bank. And if he fails to pay the money, the bank will come and evict the whole family. So now we need to have a distinction. When it is a person who is a single owner of a property, that process, we agree, it should be done, but a rush, not taking into account that there are polygamous families, you will create people who will become destitute, homeless very soon, because you were careless when you were trying to bring change to our people.
Well, that's a very excellent point, sir. I appreciate that. That's one I don't think a lot of people take into account. Honestly, I had not thought very hard about polygamy and the fact that it is prevalent, especially in KwaZulu-Natal. You do find it very frequent, but it's not the only place in South Africa. So that's an important consideration. Yeah, because if one person messes up, everybody's out on their ear. That would hardly be fair when you've got multiple spouses. Definitely a fair point there. Folks, you're listening to Chris White Africa here on the Indaba Africa channel, part of the Indaba Broadcasting Network. It is Tuesday, the 12th of October, 2021, and my special featured guest today is none other than the Honorable Velenkosini Hlabisa, who is a member of the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Legislature, but he is the president of the Inkatha Freedom Party, and we're talking about the 2021 municipal elections in South Africa and about the prospects for his party and things that are going on. So here's a question I think that's going to come up after we see the results. First off, let me frame it in this way. In the 2016 elections in Durban or eThekwini municipality, the ANC wasn't exactly a powerhouse. They barely managed 57% of the vote. They were challenged pretty heavily by the Democratic Alliance. The ANC with 126 seats on the council, the DA with 61. The IFP got just 10 seats in that election. And so that frames the next question. Is the IFP willing, or is it willing going forward if there are municipalities where two opposition parties or more can get together to form a coalition to oust the ANC, say they get a plurality but not a majority? Would the IFP be willing to go into coalitions, or is that something your party's opposed to for this election 2021?
Yeah, let me say, Chris, as the IFP performed extremely well in 2019, we are going to be doing very well in the Durban Metro. We fielded our candidates in all wards of Durban Metro for the first time, because in other communities, we did not have people who were willing to represent us. But this time around, we managed to field candidates throughout Durban Metro. And therefore, not only in Durban Metro, the IFP, as we go to the local government elections, we go as an independent party, not relying to any other political party, with the sole intention that when people give us a majority vote, we will deliver the services they have been waiting for many years. But should the voters do not give a clear cut to one political party, the IFP is open to get into a coalition with any political party except a political party that promotes racism. We will not get into a coalition with that political party. A political party that would want us to compromise our stand against corruption, we will not get into a coalition. Yes, we can get into a coalition with any political party, but if that political party gets involved into corrupt activities, we will be vocal against corruption. They cannot say, but we are in a coalition. No, no, no. We are not in a coalition on corruption. We are in a coalition for good governance, for the benefit of our people. We would not want to gang up with many smaller parties in order to take power and live in a situation where it takes a long argument to reach a decision because it's many parties combined together. We will go for a workable coalition that can make decisions at the smallest, shortest period available for the benefit of our people. And we will get into a coalition with a political party that one agrees that the priority of our activities should be the people of that particular municipality. And we will not want to promote our political ideas because people have not voted one party as a winner. We need to say, now it is time to give services. We are not going to politic on services because people do not eat politics. They do not use politics as light or as their homes or as food. They want services. When election times, people will go and campaign and people will vote a party that they will be saying, these people, we gave them a chance, they were able to deliver. But people will not vote a party which was given a chance and failed to deliver because of politicking every day. That is why, therefore, if we get into a coalition, there will be clear rules that we will say, whoever we get into a coalition with, that we stand by these rules.
Well, the reason I asked that question is a couple specific points. One of which is when I was encouraging South African opposition parties starting in June last year, when the lockdown was first eased a little bit and people could go back out again, I told opposition parties, now is the time to get out there, get in the townships, get in the mining hostels, get into the urban areas, get into the suburbs, go visit South Africans, bring people to your standard, convince them your party is a party worth supporting because the 2021 municipal elections be so important. I told people that, and I said that you really got to get out and do this because we've seen what happens. Coalitions can work, but as you've alluded to, sir, it has to be a party that has your same values from a standpoint of honesty and non-corruption. We saw, unfortunately, in Nelson Mandela Bay, what I thought was a very good government. Now, I'm not a supporter or backer of the Democratic Alliance, but I did like Athol Trollip as the mayor of Nelson Mandela Bay. I thought he did some great work there. But the entire time that he was mayor, he was fighting a rearguard action against an effort to unseat the coalition and break it apart because the Democratic Alliance failed to get a majority there. So I've been telling people to vote for opposition parties. If you have an opportunity, your party can take the majority, go for it. Because we saw what happened there. We also saw in Tshwane and in Joburg where these coalitions can fall apart and it doesn't work so well because one party has other ideas or they're not honest or they put corrupt people up there as part of governance. So that's, I think, an important reason for it. The other reason I raised the topic for coalitions about the Inkatha Freedom Party specifically is because you have a handful of metros in KZN in which your party has control of the municipality from the council. And but that's really the limit of it right now based on the 2016 elections. It sounds like you have a lot more hope that you'll increase on that coming up. But for instance, in Durban, the the ANC with 126 seats, they can be unseated as a majority party. I mean, it's not going to take much to take them down. And
it's very possible.
And I think that the July activities are going to make the difference there. I think people, based on a lot of people I talk to who live in Phoenix, who live in other parts of Durban, who are really just hot for, they've had enough. They said enough of this nonsense. They've had it. It's not just service delivery, the ineptitude of the security services. I'm not blaming police specifically or local police or soldiers, but the ineptitude of the national response to what unfolded there, first denying it. You know, it's interesting. You talked about Prince Buthelezi making phone calls and trying to reach out to the government leadership to get them to do something. The president of the country refused to even acknowledge that events were unfolding as he did national addresses in which he remonstrated against South Africans, blaming them for spreading the virus when there was a more pressing issue unfolding in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. He just didn't even talk about it for a couple of days, and it's your fault, South Africans. You're not staying at home. You're not wearing your mask. and events are unfolding, and there's no response. Police are running out of rubber bullets, running out of ammunition. People have to defend their neighborhoods, standing up all around the country, all around the, not the country, but around KZN and around Gauteng. It was fascinating. It's interesting to see that Prince Buthelezi was trying to make something happen. Also, I should note that at that time, since KZN is the bastion of the strength of your party, of your movement, I should say, is that the new king who replaced his father, Goodwill Swetitini, when he passed away. The new king actually is one of the few senior political figures in the country that stood up in the midst of this and said, hey, listen, we have to stop this, and our people have to stop this. He accepted responsibility, even though he's not responsible. But on behalf of the Zulu people, he said, our people are doing this. We must stop this. This is not who we are. That showed a lot of leadership for a new monarch to take responsibility. Of course, it shows a lot of responsibility from Prince Buthelezi, but everyone else was absent. We saw the DA, John Steenhuisen, come in there, if he does. But the ANC runs the country. The ANC has control, and they were completely absent at the wheel as this unfolded. Do you think that that I'm correct in my assessment about them being absent, and that this is going to have an impact in a place like Durban? We've seen a lot of anger boil up in Phoenix and other places over the response and also the activities of the public. Any thoughts on that one?
Definitely. The ruling party slept on duty during the looting spree in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. And even if we were trying to say, wake up, they just did not respond on time. And it is time that the people of these two provinces must punish them. That, because we gave you power, you just go and sleep and never think of us as the voters, because the destruction should not have reached the level it did. And I feel sorry for the police, because the police were firstly disarmed. As you could not see the tear gas, deliberately, every equipment the police could have used to dispel crowds, those equipments were taken away from the police. And they have not even accounted to the country as to why the equipment that could have been used by the police were taken away from the police. And unfortunately, the president of the country was like someone who is abroad, who is not seeing what is happening in the country he leads. And it is up to the people of South Africa now to liberate themselves, because the truth of the matter is we did get freedom. All of us have an equal right to vote, but the majority of the people are not yet free in South Africa. A wide gap between the rich and the poor is what must be closed to ensure that all people can say we now enjoy freedom. And it is the government who is at the driving seat to ensure that freedom is enjoyed by everybody now. And if the government is failing to do that, there is no point why people keep that government in power. They should remove it and get an alternative and give it a fixed period and observe it. If it does move, and give another period until they say, yes, we have got a right party that can deliver. That is why our message is, do not look at a political party on the basis of your love, your heart. Use your eyes and activate your brain as to why I give them a mandate to govern if they are corrupt. Because if you bring back a corrupt person into governance, you are saying, carry on enjoying while I am suffering. People of eThekwini, Durban Metro has the biggest budget compared to all municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal. People are still living in informal settlement. The former mayor of eThekwini is still going to court on cases of corruption the money that should have relieved our people went into wrong hands. Why people can carry on voting the same party to give them a mandate to carry on with corruption, it shouldn't be.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, sir. And speaking of Zandile Gumeda, speaking of her, the cheek of the ruling party is just unbelievable. This former mayor of eThekwini, Durban Metro, was resigned because of so many charges of corruption and misuse of funds. And then, when people weren't looking, she was appointed by her own party as a member of the provincial legislature. And only was she removed or suspended, I should say, after an uproar because people screamed about it. But she's still drawing a salary. She should never have been appointed to that position. This is insanity.
Exactly. The recycling is what the ANC is good in doing. Commit a corruption case at a local government level. They take you to the national parliament or provincial parliament, or if you do it at a national or provincial, they will deploy you as a mayor somewhere. So now, when they say they want to deal with corruption, but there is no commitment, it's just only a lip service. When you look at the actions, what they do actually is contrary to fighting corruption.
Well, sir, look, I have to correct you. I have to disagree with you. I don't want to start an argument here, but I did watch the ANC's manifesto launch, and President President Ramaphosa got up and he assured us that they've made mistakes. They haven't always picked the best people. They haven't always dealt with corruption, but they've heard the message. After 27 years, they're listening now, and they're going to do better. They're going to. I'm sorry. I can't do it with a straight face. I just can't do it with a straight face. No, but seriously, it's absolute insanity. Let me shift gears here a little bit. This is a question that came in from one of my viewers who gave a super chat here. So this one, I don't mean to put you on the spot. This is a question I wouldn't normally entertain, but I'll ask you anyway because it's actually in the news frequently in South Africa now. People are talking about it. And let me tell you my position first off. I'm not a fan of this substance. I don't like it. But Azioba asked the question. He said, "What is the IFP's view on?" Well, I don't have an issue with traditional medicine. Let me be clear about that. I'm fine with that. But what is the IFP's view on traditional medicine and medical cannabis? Medical cannabis. That's the thing I have an issue with. What's the IFP's view on traditional medicine and medical cannabis? The KZN economy would boom with legalization of medical cannabis. Well, I can't argue with, before you answer, I can't argue with his position about potentially an economic benefit. We've seen that in Colorado. We've seen that in Oregon. We've seen it in California where they legalized this thing. I personally have issues with it, but that might just be because I'm a fossil, come from a different era. But does your party have a position on this, or is it something you've talked or discussed? Medical cannabis.
The IFP, I'm sure you will remember Mr. Ambrosini, who was a national member of parliament and an advisor to Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. And he eventually died of cancer. He was a champion of the use of cannabis for medicine. On behalf of the IFP, we do support that idea. We are not opposed.
No, it's a good question. It's one I wouldn't have asked, but so I'm glad that Azioba asked it, and thank you for that point. You know, my mother passed away December 7th of last year from cancer. She had metastatic lung cancer, and I know that she was using medical cannabis legally to help alleviate her suffering. So I understand why people use it. But thank you for the question, Azioba, and thank you, sir, for the response there. You know, it's as we go forward here, I look at the results. I'm gonna be paying very close attention to see how the IFP improves in these metros across the country, but particularly in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal, to see if you pick up more ward seats. In your selection process, is this? You mentioned 2016. You started already looking at 2021. The IFP was already looking at 2020, 2016. So have you spent the last 5 years developing and coming up with good, viable candidates, or has it been a focus late? We saw the African National Congress, of course, famously, they deploy their cadres. So, you could become a candidate overnight for the ANC if you're in favor. But has your party focused on developing leadership abilities and coming up with the right people to be in position to get on these councils in 2021?
We are very satisfied. As I told you that we knew in 2016 that the next local government election is in 2021. Of course, COVID-19 somehow disrupted some of our programs, but we knew long ago. And the councillors that we deployed in 2016, we invested a lot in them during this term that is coming to an end in terms of capacity building. Because you cannot afford to come up with a complete new team in 2021, but you need to build on people that you have invested on, but leaving a space for the community to decide whom they nominate on the basis of his or her performance. The majority of the councillors, especially those who are young in age and women, came back. The new cohort that joins those who will be returning as candidates is a group of young or middle-aged men and women. And this time around, we try to emphasize to people that you must consider the ability to read and write English, because all the government agenda, laws, and everything are in English. But if you have a person who is the best performer in terms of servicing people, we are not saying exclude on the basis of the ability to read and write. All what we are saying, the candidate or the representative that you elect must be someone who will understand the discussions in council. Because he may be good, but if he doesn't understand the discussions in council, it's a challenge. So we are very satisfied. The candidates that we have, and we have a standing wing in the party that is known as the Political Oversight Committee that deals with the oversight work on the performance of the councillors. It also deals with capacity building and also monitoring those who are deployed into positions, mayors, deputy mayor, speaker, exco, in terms of meeting the deadlines, compliance, and able to deliver a clean governance. Our main target will be clean audit outcome. Many of our municipalities are able to get unqualified audit outcome, but we want them to go further to complete clean audit outcomes. That is our priority in this term, because we have invested in these councillors for over a longer period. They should be knowing how to play the game and ensure that when you deliver services, but your books also must be clean.
Those are excellent points. You mentioned English and people having proficiency in English. Official languages, keep coming up. Of course, English is not a particularly widely spoken first language in South Africa. Zulu is the largest, most widely spoken first language, and then followed by Afrikaans and Xhosa. But you mentioned English, and it gives me an opportunity to talk about something I wanted to ask you about. You're a Zulu, of course. I have a lot of experience with the Tswana people and the Basotho people, and of course Afrikaans-speaking South Africans, but not a lot of experience with Zulu. Of course, probably the only Zulu word I'm familiar with is Sawubona, so that's probably about it. But I did have the good fortune to see when it came out an amazing film, the first ever major motion picture done in Zulu, in the language of Zulu, and that was a movie called Yesterday. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It came out in 2004. Leleti Kumalo was the actress in that. She played, so you know which film I'm talking about. That was an incredibly powerful movie. I don't like watching subtitles in movies, but I was glued to the screen. It was incredibly powerful. It was fascinating to see the first ever major motion picture done in Zulu. Are you familiar with that film? Have you ever had a chance to see it? Because I know you've worked in the HIV field in the past, and this movie was about the sad tragedies associated with HIV.
Yes, I know it.
Yeah, it was an incredible film. Was it interesting for you to see a movie that was actually in Zulu?
Yes, of course. As a Zulu-speaking person, I was really moved about them. I did see it, and I know. By the way, Leleti Kumalo was a wife to my neighbor, Paed Hlabisa.
Ah, okay. I had no idea. And actually, with a name like Kumalo, I assumed that maybe she was Setswana, or she was mixed Setswana and Zulu. So.
No.
No, that's
Zulu is a Zulu-speaking person.
Okay. No, it was. She was brilliant in the film. It was heart-wrenching. It was quite amazing. So, but there's an interesting tie there. I had no idea. That's fascinating. So yeah, it was. I mean, I can hardly believe it's been almost 20 years. It's 17 years ago that movie came out. So that's quite some time. A lot has happened since then. Now, of course, sadly, South Africa is a country that's most heavily impacted by HIV. Even to this day, it has the largest number of HIV positive people in the country. When you talk about the provision of services, whether it's clinics and care and things like that, that I assume is a priority for the IFP, local service delivery, clinics and healthcare.
That is why one of the points in our manifesto is that we believe in the provision of quality healthcare. And that is why we are saying the government must revolve certain powers down to the local government sphere. The IFP is of the view that more mobile clinics should be provided to local communities, because the data shows in the hospital the spots of more people getting sick, because you are able to trace on the data that the majority of people suffering on a particular illness come from a particular area. Even at a clinic level, you are able to determine that. At the time when our people are unemployed, sometimes it is very difficult to reach even the clinic, let alone the hospital. The provision of mobile clinics closer to where people are and to where people are densely populated is what the IFP will champion and consistently convey this message to government, that revolve certain powers down to municipal level, especially on the issue of health, the issue of justice, and the issue of education. The IFP is trying its, and once you revolve powers, they must be accompanied with budget, because giving powers only with no budget is useless. Revolve more money to people, because when people have a problem with a road, they don't think of a government. Even if it is a provincial road, they will talk to a councillor. Now, if the government can revolve these services, because once people do have houses, excuse me, have electricity, have water, now the next thing is roads, health, safety and security. South Africa is one of the unsafe countries in the world, where women are afraid to go alone, children cannot play freely on our streets because of crime and violence. If if more power was revolved down so that you have even mobile police station to hotspots of crime, and a local municipality will know best the areas of high crime because councillors live there. That is why, therefore, we say on the issue of health, we will even employ the municipal health workers, especially concentrating on nurses. But if you don't have the power to do that, you can't go ahead. But if the government can revolve those powers down to local municipalities, the lives of our people will be made better at a short space of time, as we have taken 27 years, yet little we see in other aspects of life.
Folks, you're listening to Chris White, Africa, on the Indaba Africa channel, part of the Indaba Broadcasting Network. It is the 12th of October. We are just 18 days from municipal elections in South Africa. And my special feature guest today is the president of the Inkatha Freedom Party, none other than the Honorable Velenkosini Hlabisa. We're talking about a number of things. You just touched on something there, sir, a moment ago that I'd really like to bring up. As my understanding, you're a believer in lifelong learning, continuing education as you go along. If we look at the standards that the African National Congress set in South Africa for education, it's quite shocking. For those who don't know, the matric entrance exam to get into university, they now allow people to get 2 scores with 30% considered passing. I have to say that if the engineer who's building the bridge that I have to transit every day to get to and from work got 35% in math, I'm a bit concerned about that. They've dumbed down the standards. They've stolen money that was meant for education. In the Eastern Cape, we see textbook contracts that are just putting money of these BEE companies that don't even exist. They're fictional, and no one is brought to book for this. No charges, no criminal prosecutions. Really, we heard Cyril Ramaphosa say not long ago that Bantu education is worse than no education at all. And frankly, these days, I would say that ANC education isn't much better than that, and maybe it's even worse. Any thoughts or concerns about education and your views on education going forward?
One of the points in the manifesto of the IFP is that we build the next generation. The IFP, let me just go back a little while. Mm-hmm. During the period of the struggle against apartheid, the IFP had a slogan, education for liberation. And the ANC had a slogan, liberation now and education later. So right from there, we were a sharp contrast to the ANC. And the ANC has let down our education, and I'm using a better way to say let down, but they have destroyed the education of our children. They introduced the OBE, something that just really did not have any worthiness for our children to compete with other nations. They kept on chopping and changing the OBE. 2 years later, because I'm a teacher by profession, and spent 24 years as a teacher, and it was disgusting when you saw the levels being lowered from better to worse, the pass rate being lowered to worse, children reaching matric level, not able to express themselves because there are conditions that a child cannot stay more than these years in a particular phase. Even if he or she is not performing, you must take that child to the following grade, and eventually, to avoid a stampede at the exit, then they had to lower the pass rate and allow them to go out. If they go to a tertiary institution, they can't cope. They drop out. And this is the product the ANC has given the people of South Africa. The IFP believes in lifelong learning, as you rightly said. I have registered for my LLB degree I have no stress, but I want to send a message even to younger people that I am a double graduate already. I had my Paed degree and had my honors degree. I did not want to take a shortcut. I decided to go for a full course degree, an LLB degree that can take me 4 years. I'm going to try to make a record that while part-time, busy with other stuff, finish it on time. I took 5 courses this year, and all my year mark, none of my course is below 75% as I'm going to my examination. I want to say to young people in South Africa, you do not have any excuse. And I'm sending this message to councillors and members of the legislature that you do not have any excuse not to read, not to educate yourself, because if you educate yourself, you become an investment for the community you serve. You will not be misled by an official if, as a representative, you are informed. That is why in our municipalities, we invest in education, right from the erstwhile KwaZulu government. You know, the likes of Dr. Velenkosini is a product of the IFP-led bursary scheme that made Velenkosini what he is today, and so many that I can mention. And that is why the IFP, even after 1994, we prioritized building schools, building colleges of education. Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi went abroad and throughout South Africa raising funds to build a school of technology that will assist Black people who could not go to a racially exclusive institution. There is Mangosuthu University of Technology, is a product of the idea of an Inkatha Freedom Party leader, because we believe in investing in education. In the municipalities we govern, we provide bursaries to our youth, even if there is this notion of free education under NSFAS, because when you come into reality, it is half free because it doesn't take you through completely. We still invest in providing bursaries to our students because we believe that education is the key, and we provide more resource in building early childhood structures, because the early childhood education is a foundation of education in our country. If you invest there, you lay a good foundation. When kids go to primary school up to high school level, if the foundation was right, they will go right. But if there was no foundation, we will eventually have what we have as a result of the OBE that was introduced by the ruling party.
You make a good point there. One of the reasons I do consulting as one of my side businesses, and I tell people one of the challenges of South Africa is the low productivity work rate in South Africa for various reasons. And education is one of those issues. You've got all kinds of issues in South Africa. You got to pay for your own security. You may not have reliable electricity. Lots of issues. But productivity is a major issue, which a lot of people often overlook. They don't realize that. And the secret to that is education. Now, getting high school graduates who are functional in their first language and or perhaps also in English to have an education, be able to think critically, would have a major impact on improving the economy and making more jobs, developing more entrepreneurs, many things. There's other issues in South Africa, but the education thing, we get 100% on that. Let me ask you this question. I have noticed, of course, I what I call the mainstream, lamestream, fake stream media, and that extends in South Africa, or the captured media as I call them. That's my definition, not yours, but my definition. I have seen not a lot of reporting from the news networks in South Africa about the IFP, about its campaign, about its prospects for this election. I'm a bit disappointed in that because before I had a chance to reach out to your party and get you to come on as a guest and also invite Prince Buthelezi, if we can get him to, before I had a chance to do that, I wasn't hearing much about what your party had to say. I saw the manifesto launch wasn't widely covered. At least that's what I saw. I mean, in South Africa, maybe you saw it differently, but I'm looking from the outside in. Have you noticed that as well, that the media are not paying a lot of attention to your party and its campaign? That's the first question. And the second question that goes in with that is that earlier you talked a lot about social media. You talked a lot about getting out on the ground. If the first point, if I'm correct in my assessment that they're largely ignoring your party, is your social media campaign and your ground campaign making up for that?
Yes. Our relationship with the media goes back many years. And again, the media is somehow under the control or influence of the ruling party. We know that at some stages, some of the media houses are being confronted as to why are you giving coverage to the IFP? Because the IFP is becoming a problem to the ruling party. Now, rather not give them a space so that people do not hear what the IFP says. And that is why, therefore, we have resorted in using the social media. The social media is compensating us a lot in terms of coverage by the media. Some people in other social media, but Facebook, that is where you will find fanatics of politics and WhatsApp groups. If you work hard on that one, because the other media platforms, people there are very skeptical in getting involved into politics, but Facebook is one popular media platform, and WhatsApp groups that we are doing very well in terms of promoting our activities, where we are going, and live streaming. We are trying our best to do that compensation. Of course, not all the media is captured. Some of the media does give coverage, but we are aware that not at the extent they are doing to the ruling party. Well, sometimes the DA, and you may never know, some people have resources to run a media campaign on their own. The IFP is one of those parties financially who are not doing well, but I must say that we are compensating, and we are working hard with the volunteers, the physical people doing door-to-door, distributing the manifesto, the knock and drop household of our material, because face-to-face is always the best, because a person can interrogate a volunteer and interrogate the manifesto and get a response other than watching on the television. We are doing a lot in terms of the volunteers. Every candidate has a set of volunteers, and around every voting station, we have a set of voting station coordinators, people who are doing the door-to-door to every voter whom they know is voting in a voting station A, so that we ensure that we do a face-to-face contact with the voters.
No, it's good to hear that, because so my perception isn't off the mark. It's accurate. They're not really giving the sort of coverage to the party that is warranted. It's my view, and I think that you probably agree with that. One of the viewers who had to step out, he's based in the Caribbean here on this side of the world. Just left for work, but he had a question before he stepped out, and he'll watch this afterwards. The rest of it, I don't know if it's the right question for you, but I'm just going to mention it. But he asked No, but I mean, yes, if the IEP would remove discrimination in the university system. The reason I say it's not probably the right question for you is that's not a municipal. We're talking about municipal elections, but I guess presuming that.
But as a political party,
Mm-hmm.
we are against racism at a society level, at a workplace, a tertiary institution, a school level, in any place. Racism, the IFP believes, is something that must be swept away, because racism does not build communities, but it divides communities, even if it is not the competence of the local government, but as a political party. As I said to you, we will not get into a coalition with a party that promotes racism. It will be a condition that, no, declare your stance against racism, because we know your record. If a party cannot agree to declare a stance against racism, we can't get into a coalition with that party, because we are anti-racism.
Well, it also, there's a gentleman here who asked a question right after that to me about guests on the program. I've had Democratic Alliance members on my program. I've had the Freedom Front Plus. I've had the UDM. General Bantu Holomisa has been a guest a few times on the program. I've had recently the UIM, the Cape Independence Party, and now the Inkatha Freedom Party. And the question to me was, would I consider having Julius Malema or the ANC on here? Well, while I'm disappointed in the ANC and have a lot of angry things to say about the ANC, I would entertain having guests on from the ANC if they were interested. But Julius Malema will never have a place on this channel for the very reasons that we just heard there. I'm attributing it to his party. They're hustling and they're dividing the society and attacking people based on their ethnicity all the time. I can't have that on my program. That's something I can't tolerate. So. Yeah, let me ask you this question, because we're going to run out of time here shortly. You've been very generous with your time, and I'm most grateful for it. Between the hour, because this is much earlier, and also probably some load shedding going on in South Africa right now, we'll probably get a lot larger audience later on. But this question I want to ask, I wish him well, and I hope that he lives to be 120, 130. He should be so fortunate life. But Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi is a nonagenarian now. He's in his 90s, and he is a giant of South African society and South African politics. There'll come a time in the future when he's not with us anymore. The party itself, in order to keep going, will you venerate and curry the legacy he's brought to the formation of this liberation movement and then eventual political party? I assume he'll always be part of the heritage and the future of the party. But will you be able to, or do you feel the party will be able to come up with a flag bearer? And I suppose it's a funny question because I'm talking to the president of the Inkatha Freedom Party, not to imply that you're not the standard bearer, you're not the big name, but how do we get, or is it possible to get someone of the stature, or so that people look at the Inkatha Freedom Party and go, that's the Inkatha Freedom Party, or maybe that's not the right idea. The reason I ask is because, as I mentioned, he's a giant of South African history, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. I mean, as a young man, I knew who he was. I knew what was going on in South Africa. I followed what was going on, and it's just it's when of course for the ANC, there's lots of stalwart names out there, Luthuli, you've got Mbeki, Govan Mbeki, and then you've also got Mandela, and Mandela's the face that sticks with the party into the future. For the IFP, is that a challenge for your party, getting a personality out there, or is it something you're not focused on? It's a hard question to answer, but
it's not a challenge at all, simply because the campaign, as we speak now, is driven by myself, and wherever I go, there is nothing that shows there is a shortage, because Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi is not there. We share the platform. Like yesterday, we were at Phoenix because we wanted to send our message that true heroes unite people. And we shared the platform with him. I was in Johannesburg over the weekend. He was not there. The jubilation in the sports field was amazing. There was nothing which was saying there's something short. We shared the platform during the launch of the manifesto very well. And it doesn't matter who comes first and who comes last. What matters, what is your item to render? And I'm going to Mpumalanga on Thursday. He will not be there. On Friday next week, on the 22nd, I will be sharing a platform with him in the Zululand district. So now, the people of South Africa knows Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi has established his name. But it is also true that there is a new leader of the IFP, and we do not have any challenge going forward as a party because we had learned enough from him and we're still learning enough from him. You know, I joined the IFP in 1978. It has been quite a time. And if I had not learned enough from him over these years, really I wouldn't learn anything more going forward. And we have a pool of leaders in the IFP who have been around for years and who have been tested through positions in governance and in politics. And we carry a vast experience. You know, I entered into leadership position at my younger age, and I have graduated in leadership positions to such an extent that really there is little that I don't know about leadership. And the crew of the IFP leaders have undergone intensive training, shared experiences from other countries on leadership styles and what a leader has to do. That is why, therefore, I would say we really don't have a crisis or a problem. We are running the show. And at any rate, we will run the show.
Well, we're going to wrap up here shortly, but there's some really nice comments have come in from viewers. They've said some really complimentary things about you, people who have not been exposed to you in the past. They've really enjoyed your position and you're sharing your thoughts and the prospects for the IFP. But also, here's an interesting one here. Chris Holmes, who left South Africa and went to Australia, like many have done, white, black, and brown in South Africa. They've gone elsewhere over the past number of years. Says he was a member of Inkatha back when he was 19 in the early 1990s. One of your voters is in Australia, so he can't help you, unfortunately, for this election. But Chris Holmes is out in Australia. And some really nice comments and questions coming here. But let me ask you, if you don't mind, a personal question. We all come from an origin. You know, I'm the geeks, the nerds that like comic books. They always talk about origin story for superheroes and things like that. So I like to say we all have an origin story. And of course, I know my origin story. My viewers know it. But for you spent a lot of time in education trying to teach. You are clearly a man of strong moral fiber and obviously an honorable man, and you've spent a lot of time focused on politics and leadership. Was there something in your youth or someone who inspired or got you moving in the direction rather than becoming a wayward youth or a troublemaker or someone who didn't succeed in life? Was there something? For a lot of people, it's faith. For a lot of other people, it's a specific person that inspired them. Was there something when you were younger that really got you on the path to being successful in life? If you don't mind sharing that.
You see, Chris, the person who has been my inspiration and my mentor is Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi for many reasons. When we grew up, we were not exposed due to apartheid laws to what is happening around the world. The geographical location, the non-availability of electricity, and devices like televisions where you can learn about other people whom you have never met was not easy. And the many leaders of South Africa were in jail, and we would have never known about them if it was not Mangosuthu Buthelezi who told us about these names, because he's the only voice that was available within the country that could talk about release Mandela, and we never knew who is Mandela. And then we were taken into youth camps where we were told about each of these leaders who were imprisoned and each of these political parties that were unbanned. So now he became my mentor and the person I'm looking up to, a person who became exemplary to dedicate his life on behalf of other people. And of course, when our country became liberated and other political parties and leaders in Africa, we got exposed to, and even in South Africa, corruption overshadowed many leaders who could have been a source of inspiration. While on the other hand, his consistency and clean leadership made more sense, while he should continue as my mentor and my inspiration and a person I look up to. You know what? Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi is an icon for the whole world, because because this one can be known by everybody. There is no leader in the whole world who can tell you that I worked with Margaret Thatcher, I worked with Ronald Reagan, I worked with George Bush, I worked with Haile Selassie, Emperor Haile Selassie. I had discussion around the table with the president of Malawi. I worked with Kenneth Kaunda. The constitution of the IFP, the formation of the IFP as a membership-based organization was an advice given by Kenneth Kaunda when he went to Zambia to thank Kenneth Kaunda for hosting the exiles. Kenneth Kaunda said, go back and establish a membership-based organization. You won't find any other person who would say the apartheid premiers, I worked with them and fought against them. I worked with Mandela. I worked with Mbeki. I worked with Kgalema Motlanthe. I worked with Zuma. Now I'm working with Cyril Ramaphosa. There is none except him. And of course, he should be a source of inspiration for many people in our country as we in this age in South Africa.
Absolutely. It looks like your phone is going crazy there in the midst of an election campaign. That's bound to happen, especially.
Lizel, I will come back to her, is our communications manager.
Oh, okay. No, in the midst of an election campaign, the leader of a party is definitely going to have a lot of phone calls and text messages. I can't imagine how many you get each day. It must be quite crazy. Ozzy says, this has been a very insightful interview. I've really enjoyed listening to the IFP's perspective and election manifesto, as have I. That's why it's called the Indaba Conversation with Chris, because it's not just an interview. We have a conversation here, and we share ideas and talk about it. I have to say that I've got to end it because I'm being too greedy with your time. You've got a lot going on here, so I'm going to let you get back on the campaign trail. But I'm going to extend an offer to you and other leaders in the IFP, or if you've got any candidates in particular, like maybe the Durban mayoral candidate or another city that you'd like to give an opportunity to come on, I'll give an opportunity to come on the program. We can talk about what they're doing, and you're welcome back at any time. I'd love to have you back. It's been a real pleasure to have you on. You know, we were born 9 days apart. I don't know if you know that, just 9 days apart. I was born on Christmas Day, and if information on the internet is correct, you were born on early January. So just 9 days apart. on different parts of the world. But it is fascinating to see that we share many of the same values and we cherish them the same way. Our aberration for racism and bigotry, and also for being responsible and being a steward of people's resources, not a leech like we've seen some other parties do. But just 9 days apart, opposite sides of the world. Who would have thought we reach very similar worldviews after very different upbringings? I lived in all sorts of circumstances growing up, including in rural areas as a farmer. I actually lived without electricity, without plumbing, used an outdoor privy to go to the bathroom on a farm. So I've had that. I don't know if that was your experience, but that was certainly my experience. Very different parts of the world, though. But here we come years later in life, and we have this opportunity to talk. It's been a real pleasure having you on. And let me give you the last word here. Anything you want to say about the campaign, or anything about South Africa or life in general? Any words of wisdom you want to share? Anything you like, and then we'll wrap up here. So your chance to share any thoughts with us, sir.
Firstly, let me thank this opportunity that you afforded me and my party to share our views. And I want to thank people who took time to listen and understand better. South Africa is a great country with people with great potential. It is time that the people of South Africa stand up and make the right decision in terms of who govern their country. If the wrong people govern South Africa, the destiny of South Africa is at risk. We do not have any reason why, after 27 years, our people still live in informal settlement. The unemployment rate, instead of going down, is increasing. Crime statistics is increasing. Graduates, after having spent money as a government subsidizing them, but when they finish, they sit at home. We shouldn't have these. We appeal to the people of South Africa. It is time they make a right choice. The IFP not only have solutions, but it is a solution to the problems of South Africa. We have vast knowledge of governance. We have proved where we are given an opportunity to govern that we are able to deliver. And above all, we are corrupt-free, and we are against corruption because we know corruption has robbed our people severely. Unless corruption is stopped, the sufferings people are going through will never come to an end. But it is in the hands of the people of South Africa. They have protested enough, blocking roads, burning tires. On the 1st of November, we call all people of South Africa, they must come in numbers to protest in the ballot box by voting against a party that has let them down and put in the IFP as an alternative with a track record of clean governance and service delivery.
I had to pause for just a moment to take all that in. That's well stated, very, very articulate, very clear about your thoughts about this coming election. As I've told my audience over the past year and a half or so, since I started doing these public broadcasts after I retired from active services, that this, in my view, is the most consequential election in South Africa's modern history since 1994. And now's the time. As we say in Setswana, Kenako, it's time. So thank you, sir, very much for your time. I really appreciate it. As I said, you have an open offer to come back. If your communications folks want to reach out to me and you want to come on and maybe give an update as we get close to the election, let us know how you're doing. If you see a lot of fervor and a lot of excitement for your party, you're welcome to come back, as well as any of the leaders in your party, the candidates you might want to get on. I extend that offer. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Chris. It was a great pleasure to be engaged with you. Thank you so much. And I take the offer. Surely our communication section will facilitate. Thank you so much.
Welcome. You're very welcome. Very quick question, though. On your jacket, which is an awesome-looking jacket, I like that, by the way. It looks like you have a ribbon on there. Is that for breast cancer awareness? Is that what that is? It looks like it's pink. It might just be the camera.
No, it's for HIV and AIDS.
It is HIV. I couldn't tell if it was red or pink, so it's red. So it's for HIV. Okay, excellent.
Yeah. Every day I wear this one every day, and it has become part of my life for more than 20 years. I was active in the campaigns, making people aware of the devastations of HIV and AIDS. We suffered as a family of many people who left us in the family, and every day I wear it as my solidarity to those who are infected and those who are affected, as I remain affected as I lost some members of my family on HIV and AIDS.
My condolences on your losses. I've been very fortunate. Just one member of my family, my aunt, died far too young, prematurely. She was an intravenous drug user back in the 1980s and died from HIV in the early stages of it. But it's definitely a devastating thing. It's one of the reasons why one of my research areas as an analyst was HIV, and one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Africa. And I established multiple counseling and testing programs across the continent in Botswana, in Niger, and Mauritania, and Uganda. So it's definitely something that's prominent in my mind. That's why I asked the question, because the lighting, I couldn't tell if it was pink. If it was pink, it would be breast cancer. If it was red, it's red for HIV. But I got to confess one thing before you go, because I got a smile on your face there. One thing. Listen, I've always loved the IFP logo for its party. And here's the reason why. Elephant is my favorite animal. Elephants are amazing, and I'm not sure why the IFP picked it, but for me, elephants have an incredible memory. It's a matriarchal society. They are led by leaders who can find their way hundreds of kilometers in the midst of anything. They just know it. They're incredible creatures. And they're also, other than doing a lot of forest destruction, which they do, other than that, they're amazing creatures. I'm not sure why the IFP picked it, but it's always been one of my favorite political party logos.
You said one of the things, that the elephants have a good memory. When we promise, we don't forget our promise. We strive to keep it, because what we have promised, we keep it in our memory as a promise made and has to be kept.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing it with me. Now I know a little bit more. That's kind of why I stuck it in there. I was hoping to find out a little bit more. But listen, best of luck. And I honestly mean that. I'm not favoring your party. I'm not favoring the DA. I'm not favoring the Freedom. I'm just saying best of luck, because I have disfavor on the ANC and on their little friends there, the EFF. I would like to see both those parties suffer at the polls, because South Africans need a change, a real change, and a party with a track record like yours certainly is a good opportunity. So I'll be watching very closely. We'll maybe get some more folks back on from the party as we get closer. But good luck in these elections, and I wish you the very best. And please offer my, he doesn't know me, but I've watched him from afar for many decades. Please offer my warmest greetings and best wishes to Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Okay,
can I get the recording of the discussion?
Absolutely. You mean from this interview? I'll send you the links where it's posted, but we'll have to put it up on WeTransfer or something like that, because it's going to be over a gigabyte in data size. But what I'll do is I'll load in WeTransfer and we'll send it. Should I send it to the person I've been in communication with? The link?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. Not a problem. Not at all. And also, I assume you might want to use some of it, so I will grant you use of the video if that's what you like. So if you want to use you have my permission to use it, because technically it's my copyright, but I grant you permission to use any part of the interview of this interview. Fair enough?
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
I hope that you felt you were treated fairly and it was a welcome space.
You know what, Chris? Every time when I go to an interview, I go with an open mind, and I answer every question, even an offensive question. I made a decision that whenever you ask me a question, I will give you an answer. I will not say I'm not going to answer that one, except it is really, really personal and not relevant for the public to consume. But if it is a question for public consumption, I don't run away, because I believe people must be informed and make a decision on the basis of information. That is why I respond to every interview whenever I am requested to come and time allows. And I really enjoyed the the hospitality, fairness, and I was even shy when you say you don't know how I would feel, because I'm used to be asked awkward question without even being asked how I would feel. I really enjoyed the way you handle the whole interview, which I think you do the same to all people whom you interview, for the benefit of the public and the viewers and the followers to make an informed decision. Because every interview must have a sole end result of making people informed so that they can make a decision. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Absolutely. And that's what my goal is here. It's to spark a conversation, to get people thinking. And if people ever needed to think about an election and about their choice when they go into that booth to pull the lever or to make the mark on the paper, this is the time. As I said before, Kenako, South Africa.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to put you in the waiting room, and then I'm going to wrap up the show here, and or the program, I should say. It's not a show, the program. Thank you very much, sir. And let me put you in the waiting room, and then I'll wrap up and be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that conversation, the Indaba conversation with Chris. That was Mr. Velenkosini Hlabisa, who is the president of the Inkatha Freedom Party. If you thought that Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi was the president of the party, you're a little behind the times. This gentleman's been leading the party for a couple of years now, and he's a very interesting gentleman, and I really enjoyed that conversation. It was one of the more enjoyable ones. We got a chance to hear about the manifesto, the platform positions that the Inkatha Freedom Party is running under, and we also heard about some of the challenges that South Africa faces. So my thanks to my guest. He was a fantastic guest, and I really appreciate an opportunity for people to learn about the election upcoming. South Africa, as I've said many, many times, it's time. Kenako, you need to get out there. If you're one of the 26 million registered voters for this election, you need to get out, make a historic showing, and go vote. Every vote counts. It's a municipal election. People win elections because only 30 to 38% of the electorate shows up for a municipal election. That's it. So in an election with that few voters showing up, anybody can make a difference. You can win an election by a few votes or a few dozen votes or a few hundred votes. Get your ward councilor and get control of the city municipality. The IFP controls several municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal, but that's the only province. But it seems they have larger ambitions, and best of luck on that. And best of luck in increasing their leads in some of these municipalities, plus picking up seats in other places, maybe taking control. The ANC needs to get a message loud and clear from the people of South Africa that, despite Sir Ramaphosa saying we've heard what you've said. No, you didn't hear what people said in South Africa. You've betrayed the liberation struggle. You've become the massive disappointment. Your policies of racial bifurcation, your policies of discrimination, your policies of exclusion of most black South Africans from the economy, while blaming others for your own policies that led to pervasive poverty and an increasing Gini coefficient in poverty across the country, are ANC failures. Yes, there are antecedent roots that take place from poor education and from spatial inequities that took place during the apartheid era, but you've had 27 years and you don't listen to the voters. So South Africans, go to the polls and pull the lever for a party you can trust, and it isn't the ANC. Anyway, folks, thanks a lot. God bless. I'll be back later on with the Indaba African News of the Day. Thank you so much for your support. It's an early morning for me. I was up at 4 to do this, so I hope you found it useful. I know a lot of people aren't able to watch it right now. It's an unusual time, but people will tune in later on. Thank you so much. God bless and have a lovely day. And many thanks once again to my guest, the president of the Inkatha Freedom Party. It was a distinct pleasure to have a chance to get him on here. And let's cross our fingers. With any luck, maybe we'll get Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi on briefly and talk to him before the elections. That's something I've asked from the party as well. Cheers, everybody.